All right, what if Patrick Mahomes had ended up being the Texans quarterback? Not going to happen, to quote John McClain, but if it did, what would things look like right now? We'll never completely know, but let's just speculate. Let's pretend that the Chiefs, with the number 10 pick in the 2017 draft, they don't take Patrick Mahomes. Matter of fact, we might even pretend that they take Deshaun Watson and go through that in a second. But let's pretend that they don't take Patrick Mahomes and the Texans trade up to number 12 and the Houston Texans select Patrick Mahomes. What would have happened there? Now, we got to keep in mind in 2017, Tom Savage, the original plan was Tom Savage was going to hold down the fort, much like Alex Smith did for Patrick Mahomes in all but one game. And you were going to kind of slowly bring along Deshaun Watson, although we know what happened. Tom Savage was awful, and the offensive line stunk. So Deshaun Watson was inserted in the first half of the first game of the season. What would that have looked like? I think there's a chance that Patrick Mahomes might have actually gained the trust of Bill O'Brien a little bit sooner because he's a little bit more of a pocket passer. There were reports that Bill O'Brien actually liked Mahomes a little bit more. But regardless, I think just like Deshaun did, Patrick Mahomes would find the field sooner rather than later just because of how things looked with Tom Savage. So I don't think that would have changed. So from the Mahomes point of view of kind of sitting around and learning behind Alex Smith, not playing very much in year one, Mahomes would have seen the field much sooner than he did in Kansas City. And maybe even sooner than Deshaun did. Maybe Patrick Mahomes would have won over the job. And assuming that Patrick Mahomes doesn't get injured like Deshaun Watson did, I think the Texans probably end up with a better record. Now, here's the one thing I will say about Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. I think the Texans maybe end up performing at the same caliber, although it's hard to imagine too many quarterbacks playing as well as Deshaun did rookie year. But 2018 is where this gets interesting. Because in 2018, the Texans went 11-5, and the offensive line was absolute ass. It was awful. It was one of the worst offensive lines that we've seen. You had Julian Davenport at left tackle, and say what you want about Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson and their skill sets. I actually think that Deshaun Watson probably is better equipped to handle a poor offensive line than Patrick Mahomes. See the 2019/20 Super Bowl when Patrick Mahomes' starting tackles were out, the offense was ineffective and there was nothing he could do. So a case can be made that in 2018, the Texans might not have been as good with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback as they were with Deshaun Watson, because Deshaun had that ability to extend plays, and Patrick does too. But Deshaun Watson behind that offensive line, he just made some magic happen. Who knows? 2019. This is where it's interesting. This is where the Texans season ends with a loss to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. 2019 would have been interesting because that was when the Laramie Tunsil trade was made. You had drafted Titus Howard, and you were trying to solidify the offensive line. So you had a better offensive line. You still had DeAndre Hopkins. You had Will Fuller. Got to wonder what it would have looked like with Patrick Mahomes there. Would it look much different? How would Bill O'Brien have handled Patrick Mahomes? That's the most important question with all this stuff. Would Bill O'Brien have allowed Patrick Mahomes to do what he does great? Or the first time he threw off his back foot or threw a no-look pass, would Bill O'Brien have flipped a gasket? We'll never know. And in 2020, with all the front office drama, and that's another element of this, what happens with Rick Smith and Bill O'Brien? What happens with Brian Gaine? Does Jack Easterby come here and screw everything up? Who knows? But it's a good thing to cuss and discuss and wonder about. I personally think Patrick Mahomes wouldn't be Patrick Mahomes had he gotten drafted by the Houston Texans. I think in 2017, maybe you could say it would have been a little bit similar to what we saw. 2018, Deshaun Watson, I mean, he took a bus to Jacksonville after getting roughed up against the Cowboys. He was able to extend plays behind Julian Davenport, et cetera. You can make a case that Patrick might not have been able to do that. And in 2019, who knows what would have happened there, especially once you got better tackles and Mahomes was throwing behind that and throwing to DeAndre Hopkins. And really the biggest variable on everything is what in the hell would the front office have been with all the drama, all the BS, et cetera. It's fun to speculate. From the Deshaun Watson point of view, I think this is interesting. Let's say the Kansas City Chiefs traded up to number 10 and they took Deshaun Watson. First of all, the Texans wouldn't have dealt with all the Deshaun Watson drama. We wouldn't have had the 2 years in which, because of the consequences of the Texans past and Jack Easterby, Deshaun Watson wanted out of town. We wouldn't have had all the massage drama, so we wouldn't have had to deal with that. But with Patrick Mahomes, with the way that things were functioning, if the Texans had functioned the exact same, let's say Patrick Mahomes has to deal with the exact same stuff Deshaun Watson does. Hell, let's say DeAndre Hopkins gets traded and everything's the same, like relatively the same. Let's say it's the same. Does Patrick Mahomes do what Deshaun Watson did and decide enough is enough? I want no part of this organization. That's another element to this whole thing. I don't know how Patrick Mahomes would deal with that. I don't fault Deshaun Watson for wanting no part of the Bill O'Brien, Jack Easterby era, but there's just a lot of questions that we ask about that. From Deshaun's point of view, if Deshaun Watson goes to the Kansas City Chiefs and he's able to sit back, watch Alex Smith for an entire year, soak up Andy Reid's offense, throw the football to Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and all the weapons that the Kansas City Chiefs have, I think Deshaun Watson has a Super Bowl at this point. I know it's easy to kick him right now while he's down. I know it's easy to talk about, he won this many games with the Texans. I think if you put Deshaun Watson where Patrick Mahomes is, I think Deshaun Watson ends up winning a Super Bowl. And I don't know if he wins multiple Super Bowls, but I think he ends up finding a way to win one. That's just what I think. Don't know what Mahomes would do here. These are not favorable situations, to say the very least. Patrick Mahomes, obviously, better arm than Deshaun Watson, really better quarterback than Deshaun Watson. But when it comes to overcoming the offensive line and overcoming some of the other stuff, who knows what that would have happened? And would Patrick Mahomes have been able to have the same chemistry with DeAndre Hopkins? I would probably bet on that. All goes down to the front office. It's a fun thing to discuss. I'm sure everybody has a different opinion. Put your opinion in the comments. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to talk about this tomorrow on In the Loop on Sports Radio 610, 10 to 2, Monday through Friday. Fire up the Odyssey app. That's Central Time. I understand not everybody's in the Central Time zone. I hate time zones, but I guess when on the YouTube, you got to actually do it. But we'll discuss this tomorrow on Football Friday. Week 15 begins tonight. Cannot wait. It's going to be fun. Also get another look at Deshaun this weekend. Brandon Cooks, we might get a look at him. He returned to practice today. Why? I don't know. Seems like kind of unnecessary, given the fact that he wants out, they want him out, and don't want to risk injury. But maybe he's just running around a little bit and he'll be inactive again. Who knows? Want to see some more from Chris Moore. Lovie Smith going to speak tomorrow. Tremont Smith was on the show today. Very, very good recommendation, food recommendation for him. I went to the spot. I got I got a salad, which, by the way, was a really good looking salad. I'm trying to trim down a little bit. Getting a little bit too pudgy for my liking. But we went to American Deli, Figgy and Lopez. Here's Lopez right here. I can't even point here. Whichever way, he's right here. John Lopez, right here. They got the wings. I got the salad. At Landry Locker on Twitter, at Landry Locker on Instagram. What would have happened had Patrick Mahomes been a Texan. Cuss, discuss, appreciate you. No matter how bad things get, remember, Texans fans, we are in this together. Have a good one.